Afternoon and welcome to Global Purpose Live. This is a continuation of a series of events that we've been fortunate enough to interview some of the most prominent visionaries of our time: Irvin Laszlo, Barbara Marx Hubbard, Steve McIntosh, John Darrell Rue, amongst them. And today we are truly honored to have with us Duane Elgin. Duane, for decades, has been really on the leading edge, a social visionary, speaker, author, a renowned contributor internationally to higher consciousness and showing us the road to get there. He's the author of Voluntary Simplicity, The Promise Ahead, Awakening Earth, The Living Universe, and he's now working on a new book taking off on the concepts of the living universe called Humanity's Journey Home, Learning to Live in a Living Universe. Duane, welcome. Thank you for your immense contribution to the realm of social science and above all to the world of giving hope to our rather troubled world. I've known of you for decades, going back to Voluntary Simplicity. You really set the gold standard there for a whole cultural lifestyle of how we can live with enough without abusing the earth. And you've just kept on from there. First place, thank you so much for your ongoing contributions. Thank you for being with us here today, and welcome to Global Purpose Live.
Thank you, Emanuel. I want to acknowledge that we're brothers on this journey, and you've been at this for 40 some years. So this is a team effort. So thank you for having me and for the collaboration on this journey.
Well, you're very welcome. And yes, it is a team effort. You know, you and I were talking about that recently, that all the individual voices that have risen up over the past decades, I think we're all coming together, and the messages are very similar, and the coherence of the message and the new paradigm thought contributing to this now is really becoming a great team effort. But you've certainly been showing the way for where the team meets and how we practice together. So thanks for being the
Sure.
coach of the team there, Duane. I'd like to start off with a few little personal things so people can kind of get a feel of you and your background, and then we'll go on to some of the exciting new contributions you have. You know, I know that you grew up on a farm in Idaho, and some rather humble, simple background there. How did you get from there to being a leader of purpose, of writing some of the most important philosophical texts of our time, working at the Stanford Research Institute early on in life? You know, how'd you find your purpose? What spurred you to make this leap into consciousness?
I did. I grew up on a farm, and really, I'm a farm boy at heart. I have different degrees. I've been around the world, but if you scratch the surface, I'm just a farm kid. And that's where a lot of my understandings about nature, about world, about life came from. And it was living not only on a farm, but living with animals, and animals as my kindred spirits teaching me about life. So in that context, I was planning to become a doctor or a vet, one or the other, a vet or a doctor. And in the midst of all that, the Vietnam War came along, and instead of continue on a pre-med track, I dropped out. I went to Paris, and I lived in Paris for half a year. I turned 21 there in Paris. And that gave me another outlook on life. And basically, I shifted from physical healing to social healing. A long journey, but nonetheless, that's the journey. And it's to say, biologically, we have challenges, but culturally, socially, spiritually, in those more invisible realms, that's the deeper healing that needs to happen. So that took me into work on a presidential commission in Washington. I saw how White House politics works up close, and so on. So I've been given many opportunities to see how politics works, how the ecology of consciousness works, and other things that we can explore in this conversation.
Well, thank you for having that insight and vision so early on. Was there any one particular person or event or a combination of those things that spurred you to look in to find your deeper purpose and develop your path?
Well, look, I mean, I was asked over a period of 7 years, every 6 months, to go off and kill people, to go to Vietnam and kill people.
Yeah.
And they would say, look, you're a good farm kid. You have all these skills. Your purpose should be to serve your country and be willing to go kill people. And I say, look, I'm studying to be a doctor. I want to heal people. I don't want to kill them. And so there was an existential confrontation in my life. To say, well, if I'm not ready to go kill people, what am I ready to do? What am I willing to, if am I willing to give my life to healing, not only individuals, but a society that's profoundly unraveling, coming apart? And so, in fact, that's after years of confrontation with myself and society, that's where I ended up saying, I'm committed to social healing at a time of, looks like, growing breakdown for our planetary civilization.
I'll bet you encountered some resistance with those kinds of decisions.
Yeah.
What did you draw on, especially in an early age? I mean, it's one thing when you're now a well-known, famous author and earned many prizes and have established yourself as one of the foremost voices in the world on this. But when you're in your 20s and you're making those kinds of decisions and branching away from the mainstream, what kind of energy or vision did you draw on to keep you going to overcome the resistance you might have encountered?
Well, I had the good fortune, as I said, to grow up on a farm. And you have to be very self-reliant on a farm. You don't go to the store and buy this or that to take care of things. You do it yourself. You're an accountant, you're a meteorologist, you're a plant, you know about plants, and on and on. So I drew upon my own inner resources again and again, just growing up on a farm. So it was a natural inclination to bring to life. It wasn't to turn outside. It was rather to look more within my own skill sets and capacities. And so that's been a lifelong process. And it wasn't just in my 20s. When I was, say, 12, 13, I decided, given my life circumstances, to be my own parent. I decided I could do a better job of it than my parents at the time could. And so I took a stand, a principled stand for my own maturity, if you will. When I was just a teenager, throughout life, I've taken principled stands really based upon that inner knowing, that inner sense of resonance of what the hum of alignment is. This choice in alignment with my deeper sensibilities of living here in this amazing universe. So that's been my touchstone, really.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that really all of us have those kinds of intuitive understandings of being our own parent, and perhaps we just get them covered up or glossed over by a lot of cultural temptations?
You put it so well, that here we are, basically our maturity, we touch into it all the time, our bigger self, our more confident self, and our culture, our society says, wait a minute, forget that. You are what you consume. You need to exploit that material stuff out there and demonstrate that you are a success in life. And we're reoriented as a culture, as a society, as an economy towards deadness. We're consuming deadness instead of exploring and deepening our sense of aliveness. So that's a basic cultural shift that's going on right now. People are saying enough of the consumerism, enough of the materialism and the deadness. Where is life and meaning and purpose in all of this?
Indeed. Well, this pursuit of the living universe has certainly been one of your key contributions here in recent years, outlined brilliantly in your book, The Living Universe, where you really make a profound comparison to the qualities of living organisms and the universe itself. And now you're picking up on that with the book you're working on now, Humanity's Journey Home, Learning to Live in a Living Universe. Let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, you know, for most of us mere mortals, this brick wall here beside me or the wood desk in front of me doesn't seem to have a lot of life. And in fact, the dark expanses of the cosmos, we might be hard pressed to say, really, that's a living being? Can you help us out on that and
Sure.
give us a few insights as to how the universe is in fact a living being?
Well, let's ask Plato to help us out
right.
on this, because this is an ancient understanding. This isn't new. What's new is a science that's cutting away the superstition, but the intuition, the insight, the understanding that we're living in a living universe is ancient. More than 2,000 years ago, Plato said the universe is a single living creature that contains all living creatures within it. So we've got two levels of life. One is the universe as a totality. It's a singular entity, a universe, a single verse of expression. Within that universe are just countless life forms like ourselves, and we are growing not only biologically, but in our conscious capacity to look back and reflect upon where we've come from. So the universe is a living organism that's growing organisms that have then the ability to reflect upon and be expressive forms of itself. So it's life within life is the most direct understanding. And you say, well, mortals like ourselves wouldn't understand this. It turns out through surveys, roughly half in the United States, roughly half of the adult population regularly has an experience of wonder and awe. Roughly half has had a mystical experience of feeling at one with, communion with the universe as a living system. So this is actually widely experienced in the public, but not recognized. No one goes and says, look, you are experiencing something extraordinarily important. This is your cosmic nature. You're touching into your cosmic dimensions of yourself every time you have that experience of wonder and awe, when you have that mystical awakening. You're touching into how big we actually are as not only biological beings, but as cosmic beings. Now, people say, well, that's all well and good to just say that. But where is the physics for that? And so the physics is extraordinary. We used to think that if you couldn't touch it, smell it, feel it, see it, it didn't exist. And so the gold standard for existence was sensory engagement. If you can't engage it with your senses, it doesn't exist. Now we know that 96% of the known universe is invisible and you can't touch it. So 96% is beyond the reach of our ordinary senses, but not beyond the reach, I would suggest, of our intuition. So we are, the biological part of ourselves is 4%, but we live in a universe where 96% is invisible, and we're part of that invisible 96%. And we are just beginning to learn how big we are through the lens of science. This is extraordinary advances in science and our understanding of who we are and where we are.
Well, indeed, you know, I think the breakthrough we're experiencing now, this paradigm shift, as it's been called, really going from materialistic science, this idea of kind of accumulating, counting dead things to a living universe is opening up perhaps that 96% of our capacities, our understanding, our biofield that we've never really recognized we had before. So maybe, as Einstein sort of once mentioned, maybe we only use a small portion of our brain. Maybe it's also true we've only been using a very small portion of our entire being.
That's right. Exactly, that's true. Precisely, I think that's true. We've thought for hundreds of years, if not longer, that, well, I'm a biological being as far as I can tell, and that's about it. I better make do the best I can with what I've got right here, and the rest is unknown. Now we're beginning to find through scientific instrumentation and such, the rest can be known. We at least know that 96% of the known universe is invisible. We know that we are a part of that larger invisible aliveness. Another insight that's just transformative. We look out at the universe and we say, we are so small, we're just tiny relative to the extraordinary vast expanse of this universe. But if you had a cosmic ruler that went from the very largest scale to the very smallest, and we look at that cosmic ruler and we say, well, where are we on the ruler? Are we down here at the tiny, tiny scale? No, we are up here in the middle range. We're actually a little above the middle. We are giants in this universe. And that means that this is extraordinary, there is more smallness within us than there is bigness beyond us. We are giants. So here we are, giants in a universe that's almost entirely invisible, 96% invisible, and we are a part of that. Now we need to start rethinking what's going on here and what we're doing, and that gives us then to purpose. If we think we're just biological beings in a dead universe, well, hey, let's exploit the deadness on behalf of us that are alive. But if we are just a little speck of biology in a larger vastness of aliveness, well, then let's bring a sacred regard to that aliveness and learn how to be in a mature way a contributing part of that larger aliveness. And I think that is the profound shift that's underway right now.
Well, it certainly is, and you express it so well. You know, you've made a contribution to the anthology On Purpose that we'll be publishing. Just a brilliant excerpt from your book on humanity's journey home, where you've said that the startling conclusion is that the most urgent challenge facing humanity is not climate change, species extinction, or sustainable population growth, enormous as those issues are, but rather it's how we understand the universe and our intimate relationship within it. Our deepest choices for the future emerge from this core understanding. And we're discovering that instead of struggling for meaning and a miracle of survival in a dead universe, we're being invited to learn and grow forever in the deep ecologies of a living universe. Just absolutely brilliant, beautiful thought there, Duane. So we're seeing ourselves now, okay, maybe we are giants. Maybe we are more than halfway in between, and maybe the whole universe is alive. What does that mean for us as individuals? How do we take that and put that into practice?
Yes. So the first thing to know is that we do not need to manufacture a sense of connection with a living universe. The universe is being regenerated moment by moment as effectively a cosmic hologram. And so this cosmic hologram that we are an integral part of is being recreated moment by moment by moment. That's what physics is telling us. And so our challenge is not to somehow manufacture a sense of a mystical connection with it all. It's already true. That's already happening. What's happening is that our thoughts are creating a bubble, a cocoon within which we exist that is not permeable really to the aliveness that's out there. And so when I say our larger purpose is learning to live in a living universe, we have to learn into this. And I'll mention something that was very pivotal in my learning, and that was in the 1970s. I had an opportunity to spend nearly 3 years as a subject in parapsychology experiments conducted by the US government, the first ones they've ever conducted while at the Stanford Research Institute. So I had nearly 3 years to explore, are we actually connected with the ecology of consciousness in the universe? Is that actually true? And again and again and again, I found that, yeah, that is in fact demonstrably, measurably true. And we are just beginning to develop, I believe, a literacy of consciousness, And part of it is meditation, and there are many different traditions that are coming together to explore the ecology and the literacy of consciousness. And the opportunity to explore that in a scientific laboratory with measurable feedback over a period of years gave me then the confidence to say to you, it is alive. I pushed on it, it's pushed back. There's this dance that happens, and you can see that in the laboratory, in the scientific laboratory setting.
Well, indeed, when we start to substitute dead matter for living evolution, the whole game does rapidly change. Just the mere thought that there's a regenerative process to everything, that just as we see oak trees grow from small inanimate seeds, so too can our own ambitions, the sense of our own purpose, our outreach in the world has a life of its own as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The level of purposeful aliveness is, I think, extraordinary. So if we go down to the level of an atom and say, is an atom alive? Well, the eminent physicists have said the electron moving through the electron shell of an atom seems to move as if it had a life of its own and a mind of its own. There is a primitive but nonetheless functioning, centering consciousness that's functioning right down at the atomic level, and then it goes right on up through different expressions of aliveness in the universe. And so the universe seems to have one central project. This is quite extraordinary to suggest, but the central project of the universe is to create self-organizing systems at every scale, from the atomic to the galactic and in between, self-organizing systems that have the ability to know themselves, reflect upon themselves, and thereby grow themselves into higher levels of complexity, coherence, beauty, and consciousness. So the universe has this, it's a garden for growing life and for allowing life to discover itself, but crucially in a context of freedom. So we learn by making mistakes, and we have freedom to make all the mistakes we want. And we are making mistakes, but we're growing, we're learning, we're developing here, we're evolving.
Yeah, indeed we are. I'm afraid maybe part of our garden's a little overgrown right now. Let's take a look at that. I couldn't agree with you more, but at the same time, you know, growing up on the farm, you well stated it. We do have to keep things a little bit in control and maybe put some order in those self-organizing gardens itself. You know, in your book, you talk about 3 great stages, which kind of corresponds to the idea of a wave that I've had. We've gone through 50,000 years, basically recordable human history here, of a process of separation, a kind of download of materiality, fighting for survival, trying to get organized, using material resources to our advantage, which has kind of given us this cultural background that that's always the way it's going to be. But now we're facing this inflection point, this great turning point,
Yeah.
the great transition that you've called it and done so much work on. And there's this sort of process of initiation of like, well, wait a minute, it's not always going to go that way. We've got to have this return journey home to oneness. So how deeply are we into this turning point? How do you see us making the great transition? Give us some insight there on how badly overgrown our garden is and what it'll take to make it producing life again.
Wow. Well, you gave a wonderful description of what I think the dynamic is of separation, initiation, and return, simply stated. And for, as you say, 50,000 years or so, we've been separating from nature. We've been pulling back, and that's been very purposeful. So we are speaking of purpose. This has been on purpose. This is not an evolutionary mistake. Some people suggest, golly, we went off course and we're ruining the planet and so on. I think this is very purposeful, and because what we're learning is a high level of differentiation, identification with our biological sense of self, if you will, and the empowerment that comes with that. And we've become so empowered that we're overpowering now the earth. So we have to live with a degree of moderation, recognizing the great powers that we do have. And that need for moderation is actually turning us at this time of initiation in a more promising direction. Because in the past, we were exploiting our powers and separating ourselves from the universe. And now we find ourselves lost. We're far, far from home, we feel. And we're saying, where is home? We're ruining the earth that is our home. Communities are not working well that are our homes. My psyche is troubled and it doesn't feel at home. So we are making a turn, I feel, as a species, from the personal level to the global level, towards a new understanding that home is the cosmic womb that they gave birth to us in the first place. Home is the deeper place within ourselves that can be found at every moment, because the universe is a regenerative system. At every moment, it's a fresh beginning. So there's a fresh taste of aliveness that arises in each moment if we're open to that transition. So here we are, making a transition from separation, initiation, and into return. And it seems to me we are measurably in transition times. If you look at these driving trends pushing us into a new future, climate change, species extinction, resource depletion, migration, civic unrest, and all the rest, we could go into these in great depth. But my sense is we are in it. And I have said since 1978, I've said in the 2020s, we are going to hit an evolutionary wall. Not an ecological wall, we're going to hit that sooner. An ecological wall is where we run into the earth. An evolutionary wall is where we run into ourselves. And we are beginning to run into ourselves, our values, our cultural heritage, our views about other ethnic groups, about our collective future and all the rest. We're starting to run into ourselves. And I think somewhere in the 2020s, this will come to a crescendo, and we will be confronted as a species with the need to use our tools of collective communication for a mass conversation about our common future. And we either have that conversation or we move into the cocoons of safety and separation and a new dark age. So these are testing times, they're transitional times, I see, for the species, and they're choiceful times. So this is a precious time, and we need to step back and see, as you are doing, Emanuel, what is the purpose of being here? What are we doing this for in the first place? Is it to exploit the deadness or to serve and contribute to the aliveness?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's so well stated, Duane. And yeah, I'm certainly with you that what is the purpose of being here? We're contributing to this living universe. And we're at this thrillingly exciting moment where actually we can give it a new, more prominent life to itself. But as you say, we're confronting this now. We're literally bumping heads, and we see it played out on the cable news networks every night right now. You know, I think a lot of individuals, a large number of individuals, share your point of view, understand that we're a living, purposeful universe, and are doing their great individual work. But how do we bring institutional change with us? You know, that's going to be the drag on the system. We're self-organizing on the leading edge, but you know, we've got laws and governments and all that aren't readily jumping on the bandwagon with us. What's it going to take to get true institutional change in some of our societal structures?
Yeah, a really important question. Having worked at the White House level in Washington and other capacities since then, I would say it's virtually, it's not a productive area, I think, in which to work. In that existing institutions are oriented towards perpetuating themselves, maintaining themselves. And in the face of enormous challenges and such, instead of opening to that, accepting that, and responding to that, there's a resistance and saying, no, we're going to do whatever we can to either deflect, ignore, deny those challenges and keep on keeping on as we have. So what I see is we're going into a time of institutional breakdown. And out of those breakdowns can come the freeing up of enough organizational space to reconfigure how we live, how we finance, how we create economies, how we create communities. So breakdown will be the basis for breakthrough. Now, if we don't grab hold of this situation, breakdown is going to lead to collapse, and that is a very unfortunate outcome. But breakdown, where things are kind of open up, they free up, it unravels. It gives you the space then to reweave, reconfigure, reconstitute the organizations that we have. And I think one trend that's going to be very prominent is the building of strong communities at a local level. If we want resilience at the local level, we need strong, small communities, roughly at a tribal scale of, say, 100 people, 200 people, whatever. And those are beginning to emerge now around the world, particularly in the US and Europe. Eco-villages, relatively self-contained ecological and economic entities that can withstand the forces of a great transition that we're going through right now. So what I see then are people saying, well, look, I have all of these skill sets. I'm an educator, but the traditional schools are breaking down. Well, then, okay, in the context of an eco-village, bring homeschooling equivalent there. Or a nurse, bring nursing into the context of an eco-village, or engineering and gardening and all on and on. In other words, there's going to be, I think, an explosion of skill sets that are going to go along with living more comfortably at an ecological scale at the local level. So there's a material dimension of sustainability that goes then with the spiritual dimension of recognizing and growing our biocosmic capacities and knowing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't agree more. You know, at the Global Purpose Movement, we're trying to do just that, is to foment, encourage, support this birthing process of communities. It's really this interlinked little circles of activity, but as they grow together, kind of like small bubbles in a boiling pot, at one point you hit the right temperature, the turning point, they all merge together, and we have some kind of modern day big wow or big bang, some kind of psychic explosion of understanding that should contagiously infiltrate all of our culture. Is that kind of the idea of the biocosmic being?
Yes, if you say to people, look, we have to radically shift how we live on this planet. We have to consume a great deal less. We have to change our transportation systems and all the rest to be much more frugal in their impact on the environment and so on. And people say, well, there's no way I'm going to do that. I don't want that kind of world. I've been educated by television and my culture to want things, to really bring me happiness. And so my sense is, unless there's an invitation from the universe that's compelling, that is more compelling than the push of consumerism, if you will, the pull towards a more a transformational future, if you will. And if I say to you, you can either continue down the path of materialism and a biological sense of self, and when you die, the lights go out and that's it, or you can move down the path of developing your biocosmic nature, and when the biology dies, you find you are the light. You already are the luminosity of a living universe. And so what we're doing, the offer from the universe is extraordinary in my estimation. It's to say, open up in freedom to the possibility that you are a biocosmic dimension and learn to live into that. And in the process of making that gift, that contribution to the larger universe, you're going to make the simultaneous gift to yourself of knowing yourself forever, if you will. As a body of light, love, music, knowing, whatever you call those qualities, those invisible qualities, that's who we more deeply, profoundly are. And that's what we're being given a chance to cultivate in this learning universe.
Yes, well said. You've often described our bodies as this temporary biodegradable container that's holding our immense spirit.
Yes.
So
compostable conduits for channeling. We need to come up with these descriptions so we hold our bodies as with sacred regard, but nonetheless say, wait a minute, the body is the vehicle through which the cosmic dimension is experienced. So yes, thank you.
All right, so once we're composted, hopefully our spirit will carry on and hopefully carry on the good works and the will. Speaking of will, though, you know, the challenges here are immense. We're not, I mean, a great part of your work has been pointing out just how serious the challenges are. How do you feel about the future? Do you want to look into the year 2050 or some point in the future and give us a little reflection on where we might be by then?
Yeah, it seems like the path ahead is relatively clear. How we're going to go through it is not. For example, if you have a teenager and you say, this young man or woman is going to grow up into a mature adult. Now, you don't know what's going to happen, but you know something about maturation. You say, well, probably they're gonna fall in love. They may have these. Anyway, we go through the story of the maturation process and the challenges of that. And then coming out the other side with a sense of caring, compassion, equanimity, and such for and regard for all of life. That's what we're doing here. So my sense is we're basically acting like teenagers right now. It's me first, and me and mine, and my stuff. And that's not to say all of us, but there's a good chunk of that mentality that's out there. And what's happening is that I think it's being shattered by circumstances, by climate change, species extinction, resource depletion, and all the rest. It's just being shattered. And that is transition. Say, okay, well, what we had is going away. What we want is a new future in front of us. So by 2050, I think we're going to be having moved through the transition process of denial, of blame. Someone else is at fault, of anger. Who did the wrong thing here? And then finally, a sense of sorrow. And out of that sorrow, acceptance of the world as it is, the people as they are, and what we have to do to move ahead. So by 2050, my sense we will be deep into a process of truth and reconciliation as a species. And so we have to tell the truth about about the inequalities on the earth. We have to tell the truth about gender issues and the oppression of women for thousands of years. There are all of these areas of division, economic and political and social and ethnic and racial and all the rest. We have to heal those divisions. So by 2050, I think we are going to be deep into not only responding then to climate change and all the rest, but deep into responding to the healing demands of a world that's just being torn apart. And if we can do that healing, we then have wholeness out of which we can then begin a process of restoration. And so beyond reconciliation is restoration of the earth. Look at what we've done to it. We could go through the data. Roughly half of the plant and animal species on this earth are expected to be extinct at the end of this century. Well, the need for restoration is extraordinary. And if we can then restore the earth, we can look even beyond that to a new level of creative expression on the earth. Out of a place of real stability and integrity, creative expression beyond restoration. So there's a long and creative future in front of us as we come to our wholeness as a species and learning how to live with equanimity on this small planet.
Well, thank you for that beautiful and optimistic vision of the future. Meantime, we're kind of back here in this adolescent stage. You know, I've seen you, and I know you've done this in probably hundreds of public presentations where you ask the audience, you know, humanity as a whole, where would you put us? Are we toddlers? Are we adolescents, young adults, elders? And I think from what I've seen and what you've said, that the total majority of your audience is overwhelmingly identified humanity as being in this adolescent stage.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, around the world, over 20 years asking this in all kinds of audiences. Given 4 choices, do you regard humanity as in a toddler stage, teenage stage, adult, or elder? And with no prompting, before I even give a talk, I'll ask this question of an audience. And overwhelmingly, people respond, we're in our teenage years. And then the question I ask then is, okay, turn to someone and tell them what was most important in your transition from teenage years to adulthood. And it's quite extraordinary. People will say, well, it was a brush with death. Someone very close to me died. Well, we are creating our own brush with death as a species. Someone else will say, well, it was a bigger story about who I am, where we are, and where we're going. That's exactly what we're talking about. Is there a bigger story beyond consuming more stuff? Yeah, learning to live in a living universe, that's an extraordinary story to be a part of. Is there, other people say, well, there was someone that inspired me. And so where are our role models? You turn on television at sports stars and movie stars. Is that inspiring us to live in a living universe? No, we're not even paying attention to that. So there are all kinds of opportunities with each one of those to shift, to grow up, to evolve ourselves. So the potential for transformation at this time of transition is genuine. It's there.
Well, it certainly is. It's ripe with energy and a lot of raw energy. Let's just hope it can be channeled in the right way. We are seeing the consequences in some of our elected officials of this adolescent mentality. But hopefully it's a growing up stage and helps us perhaps reflect upon ourselves too, and our culture and our upbringing, and maybe this big story that it isn't about material accumulation, it's about learning how to live in a living universe and embrace all of that potential aliveness that we each have. Hopefully that'll be good enough to help us make that transition into adulthood.
Well, indeed, people want to give their gifts. Every person has unique gifts. I feel to give to the world are true gifts. And most people, not most, but roughly half, measurably about half the public is living out of their near gifts, things they're pretty good at, and they're not terribly satisfied with their work, with their lives. And I think instead of, let's call it an ego economy where you're just building stuff, dead stuff to consume, instead of an ego economy, if we created aliveness economies, and we said, now, how can your gift of education, engineering, gardening, or whatever you do well, how can your gift bring you alive, bring your community alive, contribute to a life of meanings, purpose, satisfaction in that aliveness? And that really shifts the conversation. And people recognize it doesn't take a lot for me to be happy if I feel alive, connected, a sense of community, a sense of contribution and purpose. Okay, I can live with a lot less if that other part is big in my life. So we're shifting our priorities and our sensibilities more into this invisible realm, actually, in appreciation of the nature of the universe in which we live. So these are transitional times.
Well, they certainly are. And, you know, we all need good examples. And really, Duane, I think your thought, your writing, your public speaking, and your own life itself has just been an extraordinary example of how to live this. You know, I mean, just anecdotally, I remember you and I spoke about a year ago on Skype, and you had a little Band-Aid up here. And I said, gosh, Duane, you're looking a little worse for the wear, and you described that you'd had a whitewater rafting incident, which, having seen the pictures, looked a little bit scary. And then here we're talking the other day, and you were back at it again. Whitewater rafting. So apparently that little accident didn't dawn to you, and floating down life streams, no matter how many perils there are.
That's right. No, this is an adventure. This is an adventure. And yeah, no, growing up on a farm, you just brush out. You just keep on going. Yeah. This is exciting. This is such an exciting time. There has never been a time like this in human history, right, where the thing is about our times, the circle has closed. There's no escape anymore. There's no frontier left. And so the entire human family is confronted with itself. When I was born, there were a little over 2 billion people on the planet. There are over 7 billion now. It's more than tripled in my lifetime. And so we are creating the circumstances by our own hand, whereby we must speak with one another, come to a higher understanding of what we're doing here, a higher sense of purpose that's inherent within the universe itself. And bless you for the wonderful work you're doing with Greenheart to bring that sensibility into the world.
Well, thank you. I think we're all trying to do our best, make our contributions in the ways we can. And as you said at the beginning, it's a team effort here.
Yeah.
And we gotta call out all the stops. And there is a new frontier. It's not geographical uncharted land. It's that great biocosmic interior that you referenced earlier, this vast potential, the 96% of our unexplored being that's burgeoning inside to hopefully burst out and enhance our own potential. Wouldn't you say that that's really what the hope for the future is based on?
Yes. Yeah. If we don't expand our sense of who we are, to our actual dimensions, we're going to live within this materialistic cocoon and destroy ourselves, extinct ourselves, I think. Our literal survival requires that we wake up to the bigness of who we are and where we're going. And that's happening right now. Science and the sacred traditions are meeting right now to reveal this potential that's always been there, but now it's much clearly so. So these are times of great transition.
Yeah, maybe some of the rapids we're going to ride on the whitewater raft trip, it could get a little bumpy here.
They will.
In the next future, if you got your life preserver on, are we going to handle the bumps okay? Or maybe a little spill along the way? What do you think?
Oh, it's going to be whitewater for us. We have really passed the point of no return for a lot of areas of working with the ecology of the earth. For example, I saw my first briefing on climate change more than 25 years ago. Actually, it was more than 35 years ago at the Department of Energy. So I've been watching this professionally for decades, and we're just not stepping up to the challenges, and they're very, very serious. So I think we've lost the opportunity to make an easeful transition. And the challenge now is whether we're going to make a transition at all, or we're going to crash the ecosystems of the earth. So this is very serious. And to mobilize our tools of mass communication, come together as a species, and communicate our way into a more promising future.
Well, thank you so much, Duane, for your thoughts and guidance, your contributions over time. You know, I know you're the recipient of the Goi Peace Award in Japan for your contributions, your vision, consciousness, and lifestyle that fosters a more sustainable and spiritual culture. And really, your whole life, from farm boy in Idaho to this moment right now here, has exemplified this balanced, whole person, biocosmic, ongoing struggle. But I think you've enjoyed it too, isn't that
Indeed.
true? I mean,
Yeah, you bet.
It's taxing, but you can have fun doing it.
That's right.
Isn't that fair enough to say?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Well, I hope we can encourage others to have fun. I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. I know you're going to be at the Purpose Summit coming up November 11th and 12th in San Francisco as one of the keynote speakers there. Looking forward to seeing you there. Any final thoughts or other messages for people, how they can get in touch with you or where they can see you elsewhere?
Yes. Yeah, just go to my website, duaneelgin.com, DuaneElgin.com. And there's a free book to download, Awakening Earth. There's a free article to download, which is what I've prepared for Emanuel's Global Purpose Summit coming up in November. So just take a look at that.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Duane. It is always such an honor and pleasure. You're such a dear visionary, a dear friend. Thank you for the guidance and wisdom and for being with us here today, and wishing you well. I'm going to turn this back over to Andrea and Carly if they have any last questions or thoughts. But once again, salute to you, honor to your great work. Keep on keeping on. We'll make this transition together.
Thank you, Emanuel.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you so much, Duane, for all of your contributions. I feel like you guys could keep going. You know, this could be the beginning of like a podcast series, which we can think about. And I just invite everybody else on the call to check out more on globalpurposemovement.org and thepurposesummit.org for our event happening in San Francisco on 11/11 and 11/12. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll unmute everyone now so we can all say a collective goodbye. And if you go down, Carly, you can see unmute all on the right. going over. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful
Bye.
day.
Bye.
Thank you.